Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and, of course, a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Elizabeth Townsend-Guard, your host. I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School. I also hold 2 fellowships right now, one at the Business School and one at the Newcomb Institute at Tulane, and I just want to quilt. I'm so pleased to have our guest with us today. This is Frances O'Roark Dowell. She's a children's author, and she also writes quilt fiction. She is also the genius behind the Quilt Fiction podcast. It's in its 2nd season, and it's just started. She's reading. Last year she read her own work, which was amazing. This year she's reading a 1907 book, which I am just totally in love with. So here to talk with us is Frances.
Pretty good, considering.
I know it's terrible, right?
It's interesting being a writer, and I've worked at home for 20 years, and I'm an introvert, so there can be a kind of unreality to it all, because on the one hand, I have my 20 minutes of daily panic.
Mm-hmm. Mine comes in the evening just before bed, I think.
Yeah, that's a fun time. Or the 2 a.m. wake-up panic call.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
But otherwise, in a lot of ways, life is moving normally.
I know, me too. It's weird. I was on sabbatical, so now the whole world is doing what I'm doing. It's weird.
Yeah. It's
weird.
Weird because my younger son, who's in high school, was on spring break. And when spring break was over, they just said, we're not going back to school. And so it's like it's like we've never left spring break. I don't think he feels that. He's back in school.
Yeah.
But he's just so thankful for the internet, because he can socialize, and it's not the same as being in the same room with. Yeah,
but the teenagers, this Gen Z, this is marking who they are in so many ways. But they're just all online. I mean, they're just hanging out, doing stuff, watching movies together, and playing games, and I mean, they've adapted in the most amazing way.
Yeah, they really have. Whereas I ran into a neighbor of mine who's older. He's probably in his late 70s, and we're both dog walkers. And he was talking about how lonely he feels, that he doesn't have that online life. Yep,
we've got that too. It's interesting. And kind of just how many puzzles can one person do kind of feeling,
Yes. Yeah.
Well, I thought today, first let's do officially, I know the answer, but for preservation purposes, tell me your name and where you're calling from.
My name is Frances O'Roark Dowell, and I'm calling from Durham, North Carolina.
Awesome. And are you now forced to stay home? Are you under a stay-at-home thing at this point?
Yes. Our mayor acted pretty early on that. So I think it's been at least a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, which is great.
Yeah.
You can go and walk, but that's kind of it. In fact, they just changed it from there could be gatherings of 10 people, and that's gone down to 5.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, I want to talk to you about a couple of things. First, sort of how you're surviving this, and then also your new podcast, which I've been listening to. You're reading a book from 1907, right? And it's so great. So I've been listening to it while I've been sewing, and so I thought we would chat about that. And obviously, it made me super happy because you're using a public domain book, which made me super.
Yes. I was a writer. I'm not. I'm very aware of those.
Yes. So funny. I was thinking about you because I was signing a contract. I'm working on signing a contract to do some. A series of articles on copyright for a magazine, and the term of it was so they were and this is for the term of the contract, and then the term of the contract was the term of the copyright, which is life of the author plus 70 years. And I wrote back and I was this seems a bit excessive. I don't think the contract for these little articles needs to be that long. Have you ever seen that before? It was weird, right?
Yeah. No, I did a story for Scholastic magazine a year or so ago, and it was they kept hold of the copyright for maybe a year,
Yeah.
And then all rights returned to me.
It made me laugh really hard. I think it was just like somebody wrote the contract. You know what I mean? It didn't seem on purpose. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it wasn't like evil. It was just like,
Right.
you know, someone's
now.
right. Yeah. I mean, it would have been, anyway, so it made me laugh because I'm like, what
Yeah.
are you going to be doing with this, 70 years from now plus? Anyway. So I want to talk about the podcast, and I just want to sort of talk about did you go to QuiltCon this year?
I did not.
You did not. I did not either.
It seems so long ago, doesn't it?
I know, right? Craziness. Okay, cool. So, so you did a quilt fiction podcast last year where you wrote the book. You're a writer. You're a very important writer. You do a lot of children's books and other things and quilt fiction, and you're super groovy. And I'm super psyched to chat with you always. So tell me a little bit about that project and how this project is different that you're doing.
So the Quilt Fiction podcast started, again, so hard to get a hold of anymore. I think I started posting in like June of 2018, and it was a novel in progress. One of the reasons I decided to do it is to force myself to finish the novel. And I always stayed about 10 chapters ahead, but I know myself well enough to know if I started that project, that podcasting project, I would finish it. And I did, and I ended up writing a 500-page book.
That's so great.
Which, it's interesting. A book which I since discussed with an agent who really liked it, but she said it's like twice the length of typical women.
Anything reasonable?
Cut it down in some way. I'd be happy to look at it again. So I'm kind of thinking about that. I do some with the Quilt Fiction. We have our own little publishing company, which was very fun. And there's part of me, especially with a 500-page book, I'd love to hand that off to somebody else. But it is a really long book for this market. Anyway, so that was, but what I started what has turned out to be a wonderful group on Facebook. You're a part of it.
Yeah, it is great.
And that's become, for me, especially during this time, has been a real place of comfort and community. And it's right now we've got a little over 800 people, and a lot of whom are very active. And so that's been a wonderful project. And since finishing the novel, I have published I have podcasted, I think 4 or 5 stories about those characters. I haven't started a second novel, and I would like to. I have a lot of projects. My main source of revenue is as a children's book author. And so I'm under contract for books that people are actually paying me for. But I would love to be independently wealthy, because I am always a little uncomfortable mixing art and commerce. My husband is not.
That's good.
Lord, let's make some money off this stuff, which is his job in my life is to bring me down from the clouds. It's one of his jobs. So anyway, so I haven't written the sequel to that, just some stories, but I wanted to keep podcasting. And so I was looking for short stories in the public domain, and there are a number from magazines that were published in the 1900s, 19th century, late 19th century, early 20th century that are in the public domain. And I have several collections of these stories. And I was, practicing reading them. The language that is a little more highfalutin than I am used to. It's a different kind of reading. It can be, the narrators are often quite philosophical and ponderous. I'm just like, let's just get to the quilting, dude. Can we just let's get to the story? But then I remembered that I had Aunt Jane of Kentucky on my iPad, on my Kindle, on my ebook reader, and I thought, that's a wonderful story. Now it's in dialect, which I love, but it's dialect that's very well done. It's set in can't remember. It's a fictional town, but it's a few hours south of Louisville. But it's real. Aunt Jane is real country, and I can do that.
You can. I like it. It's really nice. It's good.
and I always think it's being an army brat. You just grow up around so many people talking so many different ways.
Interesting.
And I lived in the mountains of North Carolina and East Tennessee. So anyway, so it's in the public domain. It's a wonderful story. And I almost feel like I lucked into it because it is such a comforting story. And at the same time, it's a feminist story.
It is.
It's set in the late 1800s. It was, as you said, published in 1907. And the woman who wrote it, Eliza Calvert Hall, was a very strong feminist and a women's rights advocate and a suffragette. So
Cool.
Yeah, and so Aunt Jane she's got a lot to say about relations between men and women, but she's very funny. And amazingly, because so often when you set out to write a character who's going to be a mouthpiece for your reviews, it doesn't work. That character just doesn't come to life. But Aunt Jane just seems very real to me. So she's funny and she's smart about people and has a deep understanding of human nature. And but it is, in its way, it's a very feminist story, and just that she really sees how women in her community were often mistreated and not abused, but just how much work women did, how often the men were in control and the women were doing all the work, and just the inequality that existed in society. It's very forward feeling for 1907, but I've often found if you hang out in 19th century literature that you find more progressive thinking than you might expect.
Totally.
So anyway, so it's
totally
been a delight to read, and I get a lot of really great emails and comments. I think people find it very comforting.
I have it on while I'm sewing masks, so
Yeah. Good.
So yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You're doing a video. You're videoing yourself reading. I'm curious why that choice. I like it, but tell me what your choice. Because you didn't do it just as an audio.
No, and the reason I decided to do that, it's faster, and we don't. My husband Clifton does some editing, but when you're sitting down to record an audio book, it's like every mouth pop. You hear it, every mistake. In the first episode of Aunt Jane, I said, "Listen, I'm going to stumble. You're going to hear my dog snoring."
Yeah, I like that. Now the question I had to you is, has your dog snored yet?
You know what?
Because you said that and you warned it, so now we're all waiting to hear if we can hear it, but I don't know if he has yet.
Snore. And what happens is my husband sets up the camera and he does all the lighting. It looks very nice because he's done documentary filmmaking.
It's so great.
He's done a great job. And then he starts the recording and the sound, and then he goes and lays on the floor in the other part of the room, and the dog goes, and Travis goes over and hangs out with him, and often chews on a bone, but I might, so you don't hear Travis.
That's great.
So, but it is it's not as an exacting kind of recording.
Yeah, it's nice.
Whereas with Friendship Album, we spent a lot of time editing. I say we, my husband Clifton spent a lot of time editing the sound. It's well, I have to
say what I like about it is that we're all in our own little worlds, and it feels like you're just hanging out with us. Yeah. And that you're in the room with us. It's nice. I think it's a really important thing to have right now is humans,
I like that too. Although it's funny, the last one that just came out, I looked at it and I'm like, oh, my hair's sticking out. Because when you wear glasses and you do this and and then almost 5 minutes later, I got an email from a woman that said, oh, I just watched the latest episode. I love your hair. And I'm like, bless your heart.
It's true.
It's a little bit like, I'm 55 and I'm, and I'm not a, I'm the whole thing. As you're getting older, watching yourself age, like, so seeing yourself brightly lit, you're like, is this what I want to be doing? But it's like, it's exactly. And what I have learned in the last 2 weeks, because I'm doing all this Zoom stuff with people, is that all of our necks are going to hell. And so I feel better about mine. I guess it was just me. I'm 55. My neck is over. I'm like, no, it's all of us.
It's all of us. We're living this really, you think about like the talk shows, and like we're just all living this incredibly authentic life where you see people without makeup and in their houses, and like in some way it's very freeing, and we live in it's a very interesting time. It'll be interesting to see what happens when this is over, you know, in terms of, hold on, I have it's all very silly. I have a new insulin pump and it makes way too many noises.
And like you, I am making masks.
You are? Cool. Tell me about your mask making.
Well, first of all, I'm not the world's best sewist, as we're saying. And you know, and in fact, I've taken a certain pride in being kind of an imperfectionist. So it has taken me a while to get comfortable with the pattern I'm using, which is a pretty simple pattern.
What did you decide to use?
Let me see. It's called A.B. Mask for a Nurse by a Nurse.
Yes, I know that one.
And I like that very much. But even for me, like figuring out how to do the pleats has taken a while.
Yeah.
But I feel like I'm finally getting it. And I live in a neighborhood near Duke Forest. My neighborhood's called Duke Forest, and we have a listserv. One of the very interesting things has been the discussion around the masks.
Right. What's been going on with that?
I posted something to my listserv, which is it's a neighborhood. You know, it's a pretty big neighborhood, and so I posted some patterns and just said this is going on. If you know, people are asking for masks, if you're interested in doing this, and that started a discussion. And there's a woman on our listserv who's a little bit older. Her daughter is pregnant. Her son-in-law works at the emergency room in Duke, so she is at a high level of stress and anxiety.
Right.
And she really battled back against the idea of these masks. And here's a study from the British Journal of Medicine. This about, and you know, and my response was, I'm not a scientist. Right. I don't know how to incorporate information from one study that, you know, but what I do know is people are asking for them.
That's right.
Healthcare workers are asking for them, and I'm going to make them. And I have to say, like in the last week, I've not said anything on the listserv like, guess what, I was right. But I have thought that it's like now it's like everyone's supposed to, you know, everyone but the president apparently is supposed to be, you know, wearing masks.
Yes. Vera Bradley is making masks. They're sold out on their website, but they're just the common, you know, they're like the one you're making, you know, the shape that you're making. It's that. Yeah. It's that. It's just cotton, you know, and they're calling them cotton masks.
And the pattern I use, it's 2 layers of fabric, and I'm doing. I'm doing
me too.
Top ties because I don't have elastic, and I love them. So just aesthetically, I like them. I didn't scale the pattern up, so I have some smaller versions for children who want them. But now I have finally figured it out. But what's happening? So one thing that happened this week is, you know, as you know, I'm on the Quilt Alliance board, as is Mark Dunn from Moda Fabric.
Right.
So I got in touch with Mark and said, you know, there are people in my neighborhood who are making the masks.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, but not, you know, we're quilters, so we have fabric around, but not everybody does. And I said, you know, could you send me some fabric? Because I knew that Moda has been shipping fabric free of charge to people. And he's such a nice man. I just love him. He's like, sure, I'll send you 3 bolts. And I'm like, that's like 45 yards of it. He's like, I think that'll be about 600 masks. So I'm like, mark that. And he's just like, pass it on.
That's really great.
I put that out on the service. Like, if you're making masks, or now there are these patterns that for non-sew.
Right.
It's like, I'm going to have this fabric. I'm happy to share with it. And I'm starting to get emails from people who don't know how to sew.
I know.
And have asked if I would make the masks and they would pay for them. I'm just I would make masks.
I know. So we had this has happened in the last 24 hours because we have a million masks a day. Seth Hackler and I started. And it's been really great because we have a place to put all the stuff that's happening. And that group has grown to, I don't know, maybe it's been 10 days since that group is up, and we have like 1,300 people, and they're all like active sewers. They're not like just, you know what I mean? Like it's people like trying to find out information, and it's just a place to gather stuff. And starting this morning, we're getting people, can I buy them from you? I need 6 of these. How do we? And so I had to put something on our Facebook page to say, what are we going to do about this? And I think my thought was, have an active list, like a Google Docs or a Google spreadsheet, where people can put their information about that they are sewing for people, what the cost is. Because, I'm going back and forth. Look, I'm making lots of them and I'm giving them out, but my income doesn't depend on, like, I'm not somebody who's struggling financially at the moment, but I know a lot of people are. So I respect them needing to make money, and also it takes time and money. Like, you and I have a lot of supplies to make this, but a lot of people don't. And I think so. I think we're now shifting into, like, 3 weeks ago. This is so insane. I think it was 3 weeks ago. I started saying, I think we're going to have to make masks. And people were so mean to me. They were like, shut up. You're such an idiot. Like, come on. Like who do you think you are? Like, it was awful.
Right.
And then 2 days later, we were like, no, I think we have to make masks. And we started the group.
Yeah.
And now everybody is like scrambling to get masks and figuring out what they are. And like these like dudes at Tulane, like, and like some like, architecture dude is like trying to figure out how to make masks. I mean, it's hysterical, right? So I think we've now had another shift. And so the question is, like, are major companies going to come in and provide masks for people and have them available at a reasonable price? Or are we still going to be making them by hand? And it's not clear. I mean, the fact that it's sold out on the Vera Bradley site is really disappointing to me. The fact that, like, they could put, like, they need to make more, right? Like, they're $8 on their site. I thought that was very reasonable for Vera Bradley. But they're sold out. All 3 of them are sold out. So they only have 3 patterns and they're all sold out. So I don't know. But I do think there's a toll. I mean, I see, like, many of us, including you, are making these, and there's only so much time that we can, like, keep making them. We're getting exhausted already. And so I do think that artisans and crafters have to come in and sort of fill that gap at reasonable prices for families. I'm happy to make them for my friends and family, and we just put in for a grant. We'll see if we get it from Tulane to focus on at-risk neighborhoods in New Orleans. But still, I don't know. So my thinking has really shifted in the last 24 hours to, like, we need people that need money to be making these masks at reasonable prices so that people can purchase them,
Yeah. And that, I mean, and it'll be an interesting mirroring of the age-old issue for quilters is, of not charging enough. Yeah. For the work we do, and perhaps crafters in general, those who sell, and a lot of us choose not to sell because you can't pay us enough. No. When it comes to quilts in particular, masks.
You can't pay us enough. We're used to doing charity quilting. We do it, most of us don't do it to make money at the quilting component. I mean, you could be like a long arm quilter, that's different, but that's not the motivation. That's not what our community is really about. But it is shifting.
Yeah. One of the things I've thought about, because both times now, in just a couple of days where people have asked me, and I've just said I'll do it for free, and I thought, I might think about if people feel like they want to pay it forward, to say, why don't you pay? There's this program for Durham school kids who need. If you want to
donation, like, where do you donate? Yeah, that's and I know that one of our sewists, Judy Walker, who's a huge coordinator of all this, is asking people to donate to Misa Me Quilt Shop, because they were trying to keep our quilt shop in, go buy there or donate or donate money and they'll give fabric out or something like that. Like, pay for fabric there. Just call them and say that I want 4 bolts, not 4 bolts, 4 yards of fabric. Don't ever give it to me. Just use it for masks, right? So, something like that.
And that's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. So thinking about ways to pay it and make it easy for people. So, how do you put something in place that says, pay what you can, pay it, because one mask, if you're going to pay for one mask at $8 or $10, that's like almost a yard of fabric sometimes, right? So that makes a whole bunch of masks. So it's a way to think about it. I don't know. We got to think about this quickly, though, because I think, our little group is a lot of people started finding our group and saying, I want to order masks. And I was like, well, we're not getting it.
I mean, the people are really, because that's what somebody, I guess it was Thursday night. She just put it on our neighborhood listserv. I need a mask. Where can I buy a mask? So people are starting to,
Panic.
think, I really,
Yeah.
and it's funny, Elizabeth, how you can be in just your own little world. Well, it's like, you have a sewing machine, don't you?
Right.
You know how to, and it's like, no,
No.
So,
Yeah.
but it will be, I'll be interested in, and I am part of your group because,
Sorry. This is
to follow this and we're in that, and I do think for people who this is how they make their money. Yeah. I would not feel comfortable charging for a mask, but I'm okay, but for people
I really
who,
shifted. Like my
yeah.
thinking shifted in the last 24 hours. We have a
What's
local artist who makes money from all kinds of things, and she
Yeah.
put up that she was making masks, and I thought, yeah, I could support that. I could support someone paying her $10 to make a mask for them.
Yeah.
Like, these are hard times for a lot of people, and if they can get their sewing machine out and make those
And do it,
masks,
yeah.
why not?
Well, what do you think? And I don't know if it was on your group or someplace else where somebody talked about they wanted to, might have been masks for heroes, but talked about charging for it. And someone said, you need to be careful because if you start charging,
Oh, the liability stuff? Yeah, I think that's stupid. Seriously. Okay. I mean, I think, first of all, you can that's what Vera Bradley is saying. I mean, you look at their site and they're like, these are cotton masks, these are non-medical masks. Just say that. Just say they're non-medical masks, and right. If you need to say, you waive any liability, you do a liability waiver, and just say right. We're not guaranteeing anything, but the CDC has said 2 pieces of fabric, and this is what this is. So we don't guarantee any of this stuff, right? So yeah, I think that seriously. So I make a mask, and you get sick. You're going to spend all the money and take me to court and sue me? And how are you going to prove that it was my mask that I made? I mean, and especially if you're either giving it out or $8. Come on. The judge is going to be like, you relied on an $8 homemade mask, and now you're complaining? Come on. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense, Yeah. I mean, I think the biggest problem I see and the fear I have with this stuff, and we're trying to, there's a really cool woman at a PhD student at Berkeley who is doing work on this in public health, and she's doing a ton of research, and she's getting hospitals. She's got a list, and she's just amazing. And she, but I just hired a law student to work with me to really understand the filters. And that's the part that stresses me out the most, because everybody's got these crazy ideas about what you put in between these 2 pieces of masks, and I think we need more information. I've seen all kinds of crazy things, and that really stresses me out.
Too, and that's one of the reasons why, other than my limitations as a sewist, but one of the reasons I opted for this mask, because I don't know about filters, and I've seen use interfacing, and someone will say, "Oh, but then you'll be breathing in glue." I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know anything. Exactly. I am not a scientist.
Yeah, I am not. And so it's here's something, and and the people I've made them for, this is a better something than nothing.
Better than nothing. That's right. Right. Yeah. It makes me laugh. I was thinking about, so we're Million Masks a Day is non-political. I'm working with Seth Hackler, who is a truck driver, Republican. Yeah. I'm a pink, and one day he was like, I think I might even call you a feminist. And I'm like, I am a feminist. I wear that. I wear that proudly, Seth. He was like, yeah. So, but I think about on my feminist side, we started here, making pink hats. I don't know if you I crocheted 27 pink hats or something ridiculous like that for the march. And now we're sewing masks. And it just seems so this is the essence of sort of what we're living through, that my feminist side is really angry that I have to be making masks. This should not be happening. No one should be depending on my sewing for their health and safety. And it just makes me very, very angry that we're at this stage. So yes, our group is non-political. But I still wear my pink hat, and I still see this as a feminist issue, and that, we are protecting our families and our communities, and we're stepping up to do it, and that's not political, but the situation we're in is. And this is just not cool in any way. And so that's my little on my soapbox thing. But I do think about it. Your podcast calms me down a little bit because I can like not think that. But yeah, it's very strange times.
It's very strange times, and I think that's probably the most thing I've said most often and heard most often. It's like, what strange times? This is so strange. It's just hard to wrap your head around it. And one of the things that I'm happy to make masks for neighbors, and I'm going to continue to do that, and friends, it's like I can deal with things locally.
Me too.
And I've always preferred to work in terms of political stuff locally, through an organization here in Durham, and to make masks for people, because that's like, and my husband and I have been talking about, it's like, who can we help? Who do we do business with?
Right, exactly. Because there are tons, if you're on Twitter, and there's been some amazing people. I'm a children's book author. There's a wonderful author named Jason Reynolds, and he just yesterday's put out, he's done this more than once, put out who needs groceries, and people are like saying, I need, and he's really
sending them money because he can't, he can afford to be generous that way to an extent. And Roxane Gay is another writer who is doing that, and you just think, oh my goodness, there are people everywhere,
right,
that need help. But that to me is overwhelming. But I'm like, who in my neighborhood? Who in my city? What can I do locally?
Exactly.
Because otherwise, it's too much. It's too
much. It's funny. I've been making masks, and then Judy Walker, again, who's a coordinating staff, the first 100 went to The Advocate, the newspaper, because they were asking for them for their reporters and their photographers. Yeah. So, and they didn't know where to get them or how to. And she's worked for them. She's a newspaper person. So, and our next is for a homeless group that's asked. So, we're just kind of going day by day of like, how can we help and what, and but I don't know, this new sort of phase of like everybody in the country wants a mask is a little bit overwhelming. But I think we'll see what happens. I think industry will come in very quickly. I mean, we're seeing it ramp up on lots of ways, and so I think that masks will be available to everyone. Mm-hmm. And then there's going to be a hierarchy of the cool ones and the not cool ones and all that. So,
Good. I can't wait to get there.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see, though. Really interesting. So, and culture, and how much we've seen culture change. All of these free things happening, and like our whole world is changing. I'm curious about the children's, and I know we're at a half hour, but just one more question is, tell me about the children's market and sort of what's happening with all the kids home. Do you feel like there's stuff happening on your side of the world in terms of authors and responsibility and thoughts about kids at this point?
There are a lot of different things. A number of authors are doing, are reading, and from their books via YouTube. Now there are limitations to what you can do, and we get back to copyright.
Right. Public performance, right?
Certainly people who are reading online, and Mo Willems, the amazing picture book author, illustrator, has been doing drawing lessons. And so there's some really neat stuff going on. What happens, what I have had happen a lot in the last couple of weeks is I have gotten emails from teachers asking permission to read from my books, or actually I've gotten emails from teachers asking for permission to make copies.
Right. And what do you say? You don't have the right to ask. You have to just forward it to the publisher, right?
Yeah, I don't own the copyright to that work. And fortunately, my publisher is Simon & Schuster, and they did a great job of putting out guidelines. And I think enough authors were getting these requests, so they put out guidelines.
And what were their guidelines? Did they say...
You can't. So essentially, teachers can read from books. I don't think you can read the whole book, but you can read from books, but it has to be on a private channel.
That makes sense.
So you can't just
put it on YouTube.
Videos to YouTube.
Yeah.
But if you report, you can do a video of yourself reading that goes to your students. You can do that. I don't know about the picture books.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Picture books are the hardest, right? But it also seems like it isn't like the schools aren't going to be buying the picture books. It's just that suddenly kindergarten is online, and how do you read that book? But I don't know. I think it's fair use at this point. I think that a teacher reading a crappy version of on a Zoom account to a kindergarten is not going to be taking away money from Simon and Schuster, because you know what I mean. Like that's my personal feeling, is like that we're in this strange moment where nobody wants to be doing this. It's not like they're doing online distance learning and they're not, you know what I mean? It is like, it's the church thing, right? So the question I have for churches is like, and I put this out on JustWannaQuilt, is are you guys getting licenses to do online streaming, online recording? Because you didn't plan to do this. Like, so, you know, what is the CCLI doing about like churches that don't want to be doing this? Or are they making them pay licensing fees to sing songs because now they have to do it? It's a really interesting copyright moment, I think. Andrew Lloyd Webber putting up, every week he's putting up on a YouTube channel his recordings of different shows. Like, how's that happening? Right?
That's amazing.
Right?
Oh and I don't know.
Right?
Yeah, but it's hard, and it is. I mean, I'm contractually bound, so I can't. You know, I would love to just say, copy the book.
Right, but it's not yours. You can't do that, right? Right.
And we discussed a little bit via Messenger about the National Emergency Library, the archive.
Internet Archive.
And that's a lot of my author friends are not
freaking out. Yeah, so those that don't know, so those listening, so Internet Archive has a online library borrowing policy, and it's always been kind of controversial because what they say is they buy a book and then they put up how many copies they have, they can loan it out, and it's always been like this, like, can you really do that, right? They've scanned the book and they've put it up online, and now, and just for full disclosure, we have worked with them on a project before, and now it's open. So, like, they're not doing it. Like, anybody can download their copy of Harry Potter or whatever it is. And they're not focused just on weird books. Their books are, like, everything you can imagine. I can understand it if it was, like, strange books that nobody can get to. But they have really popular books there, too.
Yes, they do.
And so, I don't know how they haven't gotten sued, but I think that this may push it over the edge, like people may just be like, dude, not cool,
Because there are ebook licensing.
Right. There's a licensing scheme. There's no market failure. So fair use and all these other things that we're talking about is mostly when things happen, like when there's market failure, right? Or when there's a situation where, like, news reporting, like you can't ask for a license to criticize somebody's work, right? So, like, a book review. And when I'm saying about, like, reading to a kindergartner, none of these schools want to be doing this. And if it went on for a long time, there'd be licenses in place that schools would have to get to, you know what I mean? Like, the market would meet the need eventually. But not right now. And so I just, it's so bizarre to me that Internet Archive has done this. And I think it was, like, a moment where they could. But I'm wondering if, like,
they got I've heard about it from the New Yorker, and Joe wrote about it in very glowing reviews and very glowing terms.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is wonderful, and I posted about it in the Quilt Fiction Club, like, wonderful. And then I showed it to my husband. He's like, this is not wonderful.
This is not wonderful.
This is not. And the fact is, there are a lot of writers, especially, there are a lot of children's book authors who make their money doing school visits. Right. That's out, right? They can't even do Skype visits because no one is gathered together. So book royalties, that's the only way they're going to make money.
Right, so and if this is gone.
These issues where I have to be very careful to remember. I might feel like, oh, copy my book. Oh, whatever, because I'm in a position to do that. But a lot of people aren't, and the same with their books. Yeah. I'm happy to give them away, but there's people who could really benefit from selling them. Right,
and I think it's the same sort of, it's the economics of right now. Like, for so long, when it first happened, it was like physical safety. Like, I have a lot of health issues, lots. Like, I've always have. I'm like a sickly child my whole life. So
you're in New Orleans. Oh,
I'm in New Orleans, right? So my feeling was like perimeter and safety and, like, trying to keep family safe. That was my first thing. But now I'm sort of at this point, which I'm still worried about all the time, but I think there is the economic component of it, what you're saying, of the all these small groups that like live by things that we can't right now do. And so making masks or having schools pay people to come for, you know what I mean? Like that should be something that should be happening, right? So like how do we support our artists, our crafters, even people who are not artists or crafters who can't do what they normally do but might be able to make masks? You know, like this is the question. I think we're now at almost a month in of sort of what happens next, you know? So I don't know. It's craziness.
We should talk a month from now.
Yeah, I think we should. Like just once a month. Like, okay, where are we now?
Where are we?
I don't know. Our Million Masks a Day got really political, a post, and people kept wanting me to take it down. I didn't, because half the people were like, I don't know, I posted something. I throw stuff in there all the time, and I'm not really careful at what I throw in because I'm just like, I'm trying to keep a record of what's happening for research purposes. And so I threw something in that sparked politics. And so some of them were like, yes, see, we're finally all getting behind our president. And then other people were like, our president sucks, right? So it's like our little group was like falling apart. But it's still going, so that's good. I think it's okay to be political, have a political hat, and also have a community hat that is, you know, we're all working together, and that's okay. Like you can have both.
Are doing this together.
We're doing it together.
And nobody's going to hand out masks saying, okay, who did you vote for?
Totally.
Right? And I hope that...
Somebody said that we should be making pussy masks. Like pink.
No.
I was like, oh my God. First of all, I'm not giving up my pink fabric. Secondly, like I just don't think I can go there yet. Maybe in another month. But I don't know. It's so craziness.
Yeah. So that is, you know, I feel like so many people from every part of the spectrum are being generous and giving. And
hugely.
They're jerks on every part of the spectrum too. And I'm assuming they'll just continue to be jerky and more toilet paper. But I do love the idea that this is a time where people can come together. I wish we didn't have to have a pandemic to go, oh, yeah, we want to take care of each other. But I think by and large we do. I hope.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your time today. Our conversations are always awesome. I just adore chatting with you. Seriously.
I hope that I hope you will be coming to QuiltCon in Atlanta.
Yes.
Assuming that we're going to say there will be.
Well, we're close enough. So we're definitely, we got to figure out, you know, we'll see how things go, you know. But, I love Atlanta. You know, I love Atlanta. Like, if I had to, like, of all the quilting communities, I think Atlanta's quilting community is amazing. They have so many people there that are, like, it's this little pocket of creativity that's remarkable. Stitch TV is there. Tara Miller's there, David with his new shop, Andy with the sewing dock. It's something about that space is allowing people to really, it's a really vibrant space of quilting community. It's remarkable.
They've got a great modern guild.
They do. I went to a meeting there once. I just, like, you know, as a guest, and it was great. And all their shops, they have a lot of shops.
They also have long-established traditional guilds. They've got everything.
And they've got a ton of places to rent long arm time, which I haven't, like, we were the only ones in town renting time for a long arm. So, like, we have 2 long arms in the house right now, which is totally insane. I know, it's so insane. And now we are a dealer for Grace because we really like their products. And it helps our project. So, we don't sell very many. We sell enough to meet our requirements, and the school wanted us to be entrepreneurial, so this helps us with our little budget. But they have, like, lots of places that you can rent long arm time, which I think is really I think that's how you should measure how vibrant a quilting community is. It's like, how many long arms can you? Is it rental?
I would love that.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we will meet up in Atlanta, but I'm sure we'll talk before then.
Yeah, I hope so too. All right, cool. Well, let's chat again, like, next month. It would be good. Let's see where we are. And I will continue to listen, and you're with me. I guess I'm probably like everybody. I feel like, you know, like, I feel really close to you because, like, you read to me, and, like, there's nothing more lovely than someone reading to you, you know. I feel like it's very kind and gentle, you know.
Well, thank you. I did a guild visit in Eastern North Carolina. I guess it was the Pinehurst area in the fall. And so I read a story from my collection, Margaret Goes Modern. And when I was done, a woman who's probably in her 60s, early 70s raised her hand. She said, "That's the first time someone's read to me in so long, and I really enjoyed it."
Yeah, there's something really nice about it. So thank you. I appreciate it. We need that at this time. Are you cool with me posting this? Do you need to review it? You good?
No.
Okay,
review
awesome.
it.
Fabulous. All right, hold on just a second. Let me turn off the recording. Let's get the mouse to work. So you've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. And I'm Elizabeth Townsend Gard. If you like this podcast, keep listening. Also, we have a Facebook group. Come join us. We talk about a lot of things. We also have an Instagram account. And of course, most importantly, I really hope you get a chance to quilt today.